Right now, you think you're choosing to keep watching. You're not. That decision, the one that feels like yours, was already made 7 seconds before you were even aware of it. And if that's true, then who exactly is running your life? In 2008, a neuroscientist named John-Dylan Haynes slid volunteers into a brain scanner and gave them the simplest possible task. Watch a screen. Press a button whenever you feel like it. Note which letter was showing when you decided. That's it. No pressure, no trick. Just a free choice, made freely, recorded honestly. But what Haynes found didn't just challenge psychology. It challenged the entire story you've been telling yourself since you were old enough to think. His machines detected the decision 7 to 10 seconds before the volunteers were consciously aware they'd made it. The choice was already happening, already formed, already moving through neural pathways like a signal down a wire. And the person sitting in the machine had no idea. They thought they were deciding. They weren't. Now pause here, because the temptation is to let that wash over you like an interesting fact. Don't. Really sit with what this means. You wake up tomorrow morning, you decide to check your phone, you decide what to eat, you decide whether to call someone you've been avoiding. Small decisions, big ones, mundane ones, all of them accompanied by that unmistakable feeling of choosing, that sense of authorship, of agency, of I am the one doing this. Haynes's data suggests that feeling is arriving late to its own story. The decision is already written. You're just the last one to read it. But here's where it gets stranger. Because Haynes isn't alone. His findings didn't appear in isolation. They landed on top of work done decades earlier by a physiologist named Benjamin Libet, work so disturbing that the scientific community spent 30 years trying to explain it away. In the 1980s, Libet wired subjects to EEG machines and asked them to perform the same basic task. Flex your wrist, whenever you want. Just note when you decided to move. What he found was a neural signal, what he called the readiness potential. The brain was preparing to act before the mind had decided to act. For years, scientists told themselves this was a quirk, a measurement artifact, a misunderstanding of timing. Then Haynes extended it to 7 seconds. 7 seconds isn't a quirk. 7 seconds is a system. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. If your brain is making decisions before you do, then what precisely are you? This question isn't philosophical decoration. It's the actual problem at the center of this research. And the deeper neuroscience looked, the more unsettling the answer became. Because your brain doesn't just pre-decide actions, it pre-decides thoughts. The brain was preloading the thought like a web page loading just before you click the link. There's a name for the story your conscious mind tells about all this. Neuroscientists call it the interpreter, and this is where everything changes. Michael Gazzaniga, one of the most respected neuroscientists alive, spent his career studying patients whose brain hemispheres had been surgically separated. What he found was a left brain system that did something remarkable, something almost poetic in how deeply human it is. When the right brain caused a patient to do something, stand up, laugh, reach for an object, and the left brain had no access to why, it didn't say, I don't know. It invented a reason, instantly, confidently, as if the reason had always been there. Gazzaniga called it the interpreter module, the part of you that takes whatever your brain has already done and constructs a story about why you decided to do it. Think about the last big decision you made. You have a story about it. But what if the decision came first? And the story was assembled afterward, quickly and automatically, to make it feel like you were in control. What if free will isn't the engine? What if it's the exhaust? Here's the thing about this research that nobody warns you about. It doesn't just raise philosophical questions about consciousness. It infiltrates something much closer to home, your sense of self. Most of us organize our entire identity around the assumption of authorship. I made this choice. I built this life. I am responsible for who I've become. Take that away, and something genuinely destabilizing happens. Because if you didn't fully author your decisions, then who gets the credit? Who gets the blame? And this isn't abstract. This question has already arrived in courtrooms, in psychiatric wards, in ethics boards, arguing about punishment and responsibility and what it means to deserve anything at all. Some philosophers have quietly concluded that free will, as most people understand it, is a kind of necessary fiction, a story we tell because without it, civilization doesn't function. Praise and punishment lose their meaning. Motivation collapses. The whole architecture of human society assumes a version of you that may not quite exist. But here's what's strange. Here's the part that lingers. Even knowing all of this, you still feel like you're choosing right now. The feeling doesn't go away. And maybe that's the most unsettling discovery of all. Not that free will is an illusion, but that the illusion is inescapable. Some researchers have pushed back. They point out that Libet's subjects could still veto the movement after the readiness potential began. A half-second window where something that looked like conscious intervention could cancel the action. Maybe free will isn't about originating decisions, they argue. Maybe it's about the power to interrupt them. But it also means that the version of you doing the living, the deciding, the wanting is less like a driver and more like an editor. You're not writing the story. You're cutting the scenes that don't make it to air. You are the curator of a self you didn't entirely choose, and somehow you have to live inside that. Every morning you wake up with a feeling. The feeling that today you will decide things. You will choose your words, your direction, your response to whatever arrives. Neuroscience doesn't fully take that away, but it does ask a harder question. What if the self isn't the source? What if the self is something that arises? What if consciousness isn't the one running the show? What if it's just the one taking the bow? There's something both terrifying and quietly beautiful about that possibility. Because if the you that narrates your life isn't the you that generates it, then maybe there's less to defend than you thought, less to blame yourself for, less weight in the story of who you are and how you got here. Or maybe it means something else entirely. Maybe it means the question, who am I, is not a question with an answer. Maybe it's a question with a function, and the function is this, to keep you searching, to keep you watching the space between the impulse and the awareness, between the signal and the thought, between the version of you that decides and the version of you that knows it decided, to keep you wondering, in the strange, dark interior of your own mind, is anyone actually in here? And the terrifying part isn't that the answer might be no. The terrifying part is that something is asking,